Say hello to Samantha Fulnecky. She is a student at the University of Oklahoma. She was a tennis player at the school and is now in the news for, well, this.
Anti-Christian bias is on the rise, says Samantha Fulnecky, a student at the University of Oklahoma who was given a 0 by her psychology professor on an essay she wrote about why traditional gender norms are natural and necessary. Source: the Bible. After Samantha complained about the grade and filed a claim of illegal discrimination, OU put the professor on leave. Let's read the essay. God made male and female and made us differently from each other on purpose and for a purpose. God is very intentional with what he makes, and I believe that trying to change that would only do more harm. Gender roles and tendencies should not be considered stereotypes. Women naturally want to do womanly things because God created us with those womanly desires in our hearts. The same goes for men. In Genesis, God says that it is not good for man to be alone, so he created a helper for man, in parentheses, which is a woman.
Samantha Fulnecky was asked to write a 650-word essay reacting to an article about how people are perceived based on societal expectations of gender. React to the article, use empirical evidence, build an academic argument. So what she actually submitted? She basically wrote "The Bible says so" for 650 words and called trans people demonic. Look at this. Society pushing the lie that there are multiple genders is demonic and severely harms American youth. Zero evidence, zero engagement with that article, just religious declarations. And here's the feedback that Professor Mel Curtis actually wrote. I am not deducting points because you have certain beliefs, but instead I am deducting points for you posting a reaction paper that does not answer the questions for this assignment, contradicts itself, heavily uses personal ideology over empirical evidence in a scientific class, and is at times offensive. The professor is crystal clear. You failed because you didn't do the assignment. Curtis continues. You are entitled to your own personal beliefs, but using your own personal beliefs to argue against the findings of not only this article, but the findings of countless articles across psychology, biology, sociology, etc. is not best practice. This is a psychology class, not a theology seminar.
A Turning Point USA is having a meltdown, pressuring a university to fire one of their professors because they allegedly failed a student for quoting the Bible. Here's what they posted. It was for a psychology course at the University of Oklahoma. The students were asked to write a 650-word essay relating to an article about how people are perceived based on societal expectations of gender. So it's pretty obvious why she failed the assignment. Not only did she sound like a 6th grader when she was writing, but she also had no academic evidence in her entire essay. She wrote a religious sermon, not a psychology paper. This wasn't a theology class, and the professor didn't fail her because she's a Christian. She failed her because she submitted a religious devotional and not an academic paper.
Wait, did he say Turning Point USA?
Racist people.
No.
What's your opinion on racism?
I've had black friends.
What's your opinion on racism?
I'm actually racist.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
TCE.
I'm just straight up racist.
He's never not said that.
There's no inconsistencies.
Yeah.
I support re-migration.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
All right.
What is that? What is that? And do you really support it?
I really do.
What is it?
That was a big thing. We were going to recolonize Liberia specifically to send the African Americans back. And I truthfully, I do feel bad.
We did that to a lot of them.
I do feel bad for the American Negro. I think they do,
Only the
they do
American
have somewhat
ones.
of a plight after slavery, and so I do support reparations, but I also support remigration, sending them back.
But immigrants commit less crime than naturalized born American citizens.
They're bringing fentanyl over, they're raping people. I don't know if they're...
Not more than white Americans.
But they're contributing, you know?
But less than white Americans. And there's a video that came out yesterday. 2 ICE officers laying on somebody and had him pinned to the ground. He even pulls out his pistol and aims it at the protesters.
That was Antifa, and it was in Portland.
It was Antifa. That was an ICE officer.
I mean, people who rape, they're going to jail.
Have you seen? 99% of people who rape people don't go to jail. That's just like statistics about sexual assault. And if I'm wrong, I could be wrong, but it's in the 90s.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it's 99%. I'm put on the screen, 99% right there.
All right.
Pretty sure, but you support
ICE. There's issues on 100%, yeah. Okay. Why wouldn't I? But you want people who are smuggling drugs over the country, raping children, committing crimes and violence. You want them on the street with you? Just
the majority, around 50% of all the people who have been detained by ICE do not have a conviction, do not have a single criminal conviction.
Majority, but it still means millions are. Millions, yeah.
Do you know how many people he's picked up?
A lot.
Not in the millions whatsoever.
Who was led by this guy.
If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. It begs the question, when you see a black pilot, you wonder, you say, I hope they are qualified. And in the spirit of affirmative action, we have Ramon and Cadillac are your two pilots. They've never flown before, but they are black. If I'm dealing with somebody in customer service who's a moronic black woman, is she there because of her excellence, or is she there because of affirmative action? I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know you do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. The war on white people continues. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. Blacks in America did not have the same rights they had today. Data shows they were actually better in the 1940s.
Let's get loud for Kyle Rittenhouse.
I'm also going to offer some context and some nuance about the death of George Floyd that no one dares to say out loud, which is that this guy was a scumbag. Skin color now gets their own summertime celebration. Oh wow, look how far blacks have come. It has now become a racial complaining day. Thomas Sowell and Justice Clarence Thomas are far better black role models to celebrate than Martin Luther King. This guy is not worthy of a national holiday.
There's a mythology around MLK that does not warrant the reverence that he gets treated with in America.
We have a federal holiday to a guy that talked about race all the time. Kirk describes King as, quote, a bad guy. It's true. We celebrate the Civil Rights Act more than the American founding. The country made a mistake when it passed the Civil Rights Act.
Ketanji Brown Jackson is what your country looks like on critical race theory.
You're gonna remove my appendix and you're a black lesbian?
Ketanji Brown Jackson is an embodiment of the tyranny that we currently live under. She's an ideological, unintelligent, yet confident fanatic.
Why does Kirk believe passing the Civil Rights Act was a mistake? Now, again, apparently they don't listen to the show because we do that at least once a week, right?
So she wants to be the first ever black woman on the Supreme Court, yet she won't even admit that she's a woman.
The transgender movement is an introductory phase. These doctors need to be put in prison to get you to strip yourself of your humanity. A Nuremberg-style trial to mesh with machines.
Meanwhile, Fulnecky's mother...
You know, my personal, I guess, journey that I found out that I'm here to help people and I'm here to give them hope. And when you find out why you're here and your purpose, it will really open doors for you, and it will really set you free to pour love into other people. So I just want to say that I appreciate all of you, and I thought I'd try this new media form video. Face your fear, right? But I'd encourage you to figure out who you are and try to help other people right now and give an encouraging word. And
is this individual, Christy Fulnecky. She tweet on January 20th, 2025. Finally, justice is done. The January 6th hostages will go down as the most persecuted domestic political prisoners in history. Joseph Biden's Department of Justice destroyed their lives. Those of us attorneys who represented them had our hands tied in federal court in D.C. Thank you, President Trump. This came after the president, in his first day in office, granted clemency to every J6er. Bon Tyndall wrote of how inadequate she was as a local politician, which included, according to one report, that she was ineligible to hold public office. She hates certain costs that she helped usher in. She went public online with legal threats, threatened the chief of police, lied about the budget of the city. The mayor had to put out her fires. She would make a promise to get the libs out who worked for the town, would lie more, of course, didn't pay taxes correctly at the federal, state, and city level, and even a local outlet corrected her. Well, that is the media's job, after all. Fulnecky has now filed a discrimination complaint, even though...
Another instructor, Megan Waldron, also read the paper. This paper should not be considered as a completion of the assignment. In an academic course such as this, you are being asked to support your ideas with empirical evidence and higher level reasoning. 2 professors, same conclusion. This wasn't an essay, it was a sermon. Curtis even tells her, if you personally disagree with the findings, then by all means share your criticisms, but make sure to do so in a way that is appropriate and using the methodology of empirical psychology. The path was right there. Engage academically, cite research, build an argument, She chose not to. Now, Turning Point USA is running a campaign calling these professors mentally ill and claiming this is about silencing conservative students. No, this is about a student who refused to do her homework, called people demonic, and then cried persecution when she got the grade she earned. You don't get to submit religious doctrine instead of academic work and then claim discrimination when you fail. That's not how college works. That's not how any of this works.
I will reiterate what has been said previously in this piece, and it is quite simple. Many have brought up that it's not necessarily that she thought that she would pass this grade. It is the fact that she truly believed that instead of citing sources in academia and trying to prove her point, she did the, well, I think, well, I thought, well, the Bible says, when according to what I saw, she didn't even quote the Bible once. I'm now torn between she's just aloof, likely because of her upbringing, or she potentially botched this, knowing she had a trans professor who she clearly has disdain for, in my view, and wanted to get a poor grade so she could run to Turning Point USA's Oklahoma chapter, use the mechanisms that the right wing has, like Rupert Murdoch and other powerful institutions, to make this a national scandal when it's not. It is under the guise of religious persecution. That is not this. What this is someone who tried to pull a fast one and is now playing victim. That is wrong. It needs to be called out. She needs to be called out. And if we lived in a proper society, I wouldn't be bringing you this story, nor would Oklahoma have to address this story. But here's where the institution totally effed up. They have put that professor who graded this correctly on leave because they are so afraid of the right wing, the fanatical religious right wing, in my view. So what needs to happen is that the professor is reinstated, and this college student needs to understand, have some self-reflection, and realize maybe the problem is actually me. Maybe what these higher ed institutions do is push me to learn things that my parents didn't teach me. Maybe it's a way to challenge my ideals, go amongst so many within a university to challenge one's ideas as well, and craft a better worldview. Not bitch and moan because you did something incorrectly and you were never told no. Hey, I appreciate you watching. Now, if you can, please do become a channel member by going to youtube.com/TYT Sports and clicking the join button. If that's too much for you, you can just go to tyt.com/join to become a member. It helps all of us out here at the Young Turks and keeps our network afloat. In addition, you could follow me on my socials on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate the love. Have a great day.